Hello, it's Roy again, and this video is sort of a primer for my next video, which is where I try and solve the old edge of the world problem in my little way. So with regard to Terrain Composer, one question I had was, or which I didn't know, is how do these multiple terrains, because there's 4 terrains in this, and that's part of what Terrain Composer does, is allow you to have multiple terrains, but I didn't know how they worked with the Unity nav mesh, because at the end of the day, if you're making a game, you're going to have to probably have a player and some monsters chasing them around this terrain, and it's sort of something I wanted to highlight, is the fact that obviously these terrains look really nice from an artistic point of view, but how playable are they in a game point of view? And that's important. So the way to test nav mesh is have to create a nav mesh for starters. Now I've very little experience with Terrain Composer, and there's this wizard as part of the examples to get you started, but it only confuses it for me, makes it even more confusing, and I don't know where the wizard ends and Terrain Composer starts, so I'm just struggling with it a little bit at the moment. But I went through the tutorial, which you can find. Should do a link to that, shouldn't I? Let me go to Google, go to Terrain Composer. They've got lots of videos to help you. Videos. And it was the getting started video in here, which sort of takes you through, and you end up with a terrain a bit like this. Now I've seriously reduced the amount of trees. I don't know where that is, and this thing doesn't fit very well on this nav. Can't even get to it. Go like that. No. Anyway, I've seriously reduced the trees almost to a minimum, and we've still got in this terrain over 1,000 trees, but by the end of the tutorial I think you've got like 30,000 trees, which runs fine, and that's part of the selling point of this asset, is that it will run, especially in a build, these big terrains with lots of trees on. If you want to get something to run around, you're going to have to put a nav mesh on this terrain. Now, even with my 12-core PC chewing at it, it took about 20 minutes to make the nav mesh. And it's so big that when I turn it on, it makes my machine go slow. So there's I'm scrolling in now. There's the nav mesh. Now, if I zoom in on the player, you can see what it's doing. Just turn it off while I find the player. So there's me player capsule, which is just the standard asset first person controller. But this nav mesh has to have, it has to, obviously the terrain is too steep here in its parameters. Also, it needs an area around every tree, otherwise your monsters will either be running through trees or bumping into trees. So you can, that complicates the geometry. So they look nice, but they're not really that playable. Now I've tested this with the way I do it is I get I've called him the mob. I don't be on navigation anymore. I've got this guy, which is that guy with the spanner, which is actually the third person controller. And all you do is you get the third person controller and you get rid of the camera, because no one's going to be looking through it because it's a mob. You get rid of the first person controller because no one's going to be controlling it. You get rid of the character controller because you don't need it, and you're just left with the animation. So then you'll stick a nav mesh agent on there, which is this greeny bit. There's documentation on how to do that, but you basically make it about that big. Make sure it's not stuck through the ground. His animation is permanently running, and then you just need a little script. Fire up this, make it so it fits in the window, and a little script. So it declares a public variable. Yep. Which gets the transform and calls it mPlayer, and so I can drag my player into there, so it knows what player it's talking about. And basically in the update you get a nav mesh agent and .destination. You make the nav mesh agent destination equal that player you're stuck in that variable's position, so I basically run after you all over the map, and he'll do that, and that works fine. If I hit play, he'll set off running. You'll see him. There he goes after me, and he'll chase me all over the map. But that's one way you can test navigation. But the problem arises is when I can get my player into a position on a rock, say, where I can shoot him with my gun or my bow, and I'm completely invulnerable because the nav mesh doesn't allow him to get to me. Did you know what I mean? Anyway, that's what I mean. So they look nice, these terrains, but you've got to do is bear in mind that this is an area you're going to play in, or hope to play in, and it wants to be generally pretty flat. Do you know what I mean? Now, going forward in the next video, I'm going to try and address the edge of the world problem. And what I mean by edge of the world problem is that there's three problems. One is, if I stand on a mountain, I can see the edge of the world, which just looks bad. If I run over there, I can fall off the edge of the world. And also, you want to be able to see some mountains in the distance. Now, what these guys have done is they've created a skybox with some mountains on the bottom of it. Oh, sorry, I'll tell you what one of the problems is. If I climb up this mountain, not only can I see the edge of the map, but I can see some sort of crappy skyboxy effect at the bottom. Also, particularly from my point of view, I want the sun to rise up on that horizon, so which invariably will be on the outside, and it just wouldn't work. So in the next video I'm going to try and address some of those problems with an idea I had, and hopefully that will perhaps give some of these artistic-y genius guys who are writing all these shaders and stuff some ideas. But anyway, I'll make a cut here and I'll do another video.